And we're back with Steph Scupham and the Kansas City Film Commissioner to take some questions from our audience. Come on down, Reg.
Great job.
Hi.
Great job.
Reg, nice to meet you.
My question is why did they decide not to pick Kansas City? Was it a tax issue or what?
Are you referring to the HBO series?
Yes, the movie that's being
the television
being done
series?
in Georgia.
Correct. And that wouldn't be the only one that we've lost to Georgia specifically, but it is an incentives issue. Kansas and Missouri don't currently have a program available that incentivizes projects like that. And in many business situations, there is some kind of incentive package to attract business, and there isn't one in our two states. There's a very, very well put together, extremely smart one in Georgia, and that's why they're capturing a lot of the industry there.
If you had to pick one thing, when you said Georgia has done it really smart, what would that be?
Good question.
They have a 25% transferable tax credit, and then they have bonuses that people can potentially achieve a little bit more. I think that's smart. I think that it's a top-down incentive. So the industry didn't necessarily have to convince the leadership in the state to implement a program like this. It actually took them years to get to this place where it's so good and it makes sense to everybody. And the lieutenant governor came to speak at the Film Commissioners Symposium, which is it's like our convention annually. And he was reporting that in 2016, the industry had a $6 billion impact on the state. So they're watching that, and they're not, you can break that down in a lot of ways, but one of the smart things that they're able to do with their program, since it's so robust, is to include, they need to hire a certain amount of workers from Georgia. They have to film, in Georgia, obviously. It's nice because a statewide program like theirs equalizes every town. So a lot of times, like with our local incentive, that's great. It's great for Kansas City area, but it's not great for Joplin. And Joplin may not have the funds, the resources, or the personnel to implement a program like that. So it's not equal. And then what's not equal then is that somebody trying to sell a project that has all these different kinds of locations, if we don't have it here, then all of a sudden they're not included in the program if they've crossed over. So a statewide program like that equalizes everyone in the state, and it helps people like me who sell, it helps us sell it so much easier.
Who has to mobilize that here to make it happen?
What's nice about part of it is that we've got Hotel and Lodging Association on board and the Restaurant Association on board. We need more business folks to understand this and why it's an asset. And it's interesting because when I travel, to New York and Los Angeles and even Chicago, it's almost like businesses take it for granted that it's a part of their economy, that they're connected to it personally. If you think about it this way, it's not just about stars, but that has an impact too. When you have a big event, you might want like a star from the Royals to come, or you might want a Kansas City Chiefs player to come. Well, what if we also had, I'm going to say this as an example because I'm super jealous of it, and he's a Kansas City native. But Michael Brandt, I'm helping to bring him in. He created Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med, Chicago Justice, and wrote several award-winning films. The film commissioner in Illinois and I just spent time together, and she said, yes, that's a $1 to $2 million weekly ad value for us. And, that attracts visitors that spend money in businesses. So that's why Hotel and Lodging gets it, and that's why the Restaurant Association gets it. Because when I look at the breakdowns of what people spend, it's like, I can't believe how much these people eat. So it's not just catering on set, which is like an enormous bill of like $20,000. Wow. It's, we had a working lunch here, and we had a working dinner here, and then we had working drinks here, and They are working really hard, but they do eat a lot. They go to sporting events. They go to attractions. They spend a lot of money on a lot of different kinds of business, and it potentially elevates our brands. You know, for example, if one of our major businesses or headquarters was here and there was a show here, it's like all of a sudden Joe walks into business where he works, or you know what I'm saying? So it starts to integrate and starts to elevate everybody. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks for asking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Before you answer that question, can you ask that again? We got a little technical
Audio.
Sorry.
audio glitch. Sorry about that, audience.
Totally fine.
We'll try that one more time.
Yes. So from the beginning, I said that you had mentioned a number of reasons why we did lose the bid to Georgia. And then I asked, what do you foresee for the near future and coming to Kansas City? Who, what, where, when, how, what can we look forward to?
Okay, I have to preface this with I can't talk about everything.
Right.
Non-disclosure.
Which is hard for me to do. However, I will let you know that in the month of October, I traveled to LA and New York and had several different kinds of meetings. There has been a deadline article, and that's an industry publication, a deadline article that came out that says there is going to be another David Dismalchin written film. And David Dismalchin is from Kansas City. He's a writer, he's an actor, Ant-Man, Blade Runner, he's on MacGyver as Murdoch. I mean, he's like everywhere right now. He's a rising star, big time. And he wrote a film that was produced here in 2016. That's the one that we're hoping has the Sundance premiere. Well, deadline article, and he and I knew this anyway, but he's looped in a producer named Stephen P. Wagner, who produced The Blind Side, and I'll just say, and other humongous films. And another producer who's more an indie producer named Molly Elfman, who is successful in her own right, but is also the daughter of the famous composer Danny Elfman. And director, who was just mentioned in Movie Maker magazine as one of the top emerging artists to watch in film, Laura Moss, who has been slated to direct it. This last weekend, I just spent time with Laura Moss. In LA, I spent time with Molly Elfman. They're currently finalizing funding meetings, and what they would love, they and other people, but they want to film in Kansas City. They're planning on filming in Kansas City. They've already come in. We've already done a scout. We've selected several sites in several neighborhoods and areas that would work for them. Now it's just finalizing all of their financial pieces to get to what might be an almost $2 million film. Once that's set, it's almost like just look at the calendar, look at everyone's schedules and say, when's go time? So we're expecting that film in 2018.
That's exciting.
I do want to kind of mention though that Molly and I had she's a producer of indie films. Steve is sort of like big time, so he kind of doesn't get like, how do you put together a small film? So he's, thank God Molly's on the project, but it's great that he's supports David and he's that interested in it. He loved Kansas City when they scouted. In fact, I met another producer because Steve told him to come here that he'd love it. And we met here in Kansas City, so everything's related. They said, if there's anybody in Kansas City who's interested in investing, and the way that it works probably in the best, most cleanest way is first money in, first money out. That means, and the thing with their kind of genre of film, it's really easy to sell. It's really easy to pre-sell it to markets, especially overseas, because it's in the horror sci-fi genre. And so it's not a real high risk project. So it's they're looking for first money in, first money out. The thing that makes me nervous is that whoever that financer ends up being, and there's several people interested, if they don't care a lick about Kansas City and it's their money, they could put their foot down and say, guys, you need to get at least a little bit back so I'm more comfortable. You need to go to a place with higher than a 10% incentive. I mean, it's good that we have it because honestly, that communicates to that investor, look, we're definitely getting something back for where we're going. Right. So we're, it'll be okay up to here. But I'm not really scared because it's a genre that's easy to sell. I do believe they're talking to a couple of people with Kansas City ties that care about us, that want to see us do well and us grow. And they'll get their money back and then make more off of that, honestly, with this kind of film, with these kinds of people running the show. I think it would be great if we could figure out, and I don't want to get involved. I don't get involved with negotiations or really money at all. But it would be interesting for us to learn more about that part of the business, because if there are people who would want to group together and do that kind of investment and diversify their portfolio in that way, there are ways to do it that make sense and that are safer. But I don't think that we know enough about that to help participate in that. And I think that that actually would make us a stickier film community, you know? Because if the money's here and they're like, nope, you have to film it here, you know? And you're like, yes, who are you? Let's find you guys and get you connected with people where it's a win-win, you know?
Right.
So, I can't remember your question anymore. I kind of took it to a new place.
You did answer it.
Okay.
I think to the fullest extent, maybe, unless there is something you'd like to elaborate about what else is coming to Kansas City in the near future that we can look forward to. But
Okay. Well,
Teaser.
it was very well-rounded, thorough.
I do want to say this. I just did a report for what. So I do a report for how many assists I do in a month. Then how many I actually confirmed filmed in a month. So I do this every single month. And so this last month, Mysteries at the Museum filmed, Andrew Zimmern's Bizarre Foods filmed. I put together a package for a potential Netflix show that would film here in spring or summer. So that is a maybe they would come. I can't say any more about
Fingers
that.
crossed.
But I did put packages together and I sent them off. I also sent packages off earlier this fall to the FX network. They've got some shows on the slate. I can guarantee you there'll be a lot of television. In fact, when we've done the analysis of what kinds of productions are coming to Kansas City, TV is number one, that I work with at least. TV is number one, commercial production is number two, film is number three, and then we go down, you know, music video, short film, corporate video.
Okay.
All of that. But the percentages are interesting. I did a report from October 2014, that's when the film office opened, when I started working, to the end of August 2017. And I had assisted 59 different films. And films have a long, long life. So if I'm touching that many films, like they say they're interested and they say they have locations that might fit us, they might come next year, they might come in 2 years, they might come in 3, because the development time for films is so long. But at least we're in the mix now. And we weren't before. And not to the fault of any of the volunteers, it's just that that's not how it was set up. It was a services only. You know, here's crew locally, here's some locations locally, and we'll help you as much as we can. But it wasn't anybody going out and saying, we're right here.
Yeah.
We have professional crew. We have this. We have that. We want you to come. So it's increased year over year at this point. And so my goals, it's kind of scary for me because like I set goals every year with my organization and that I want to be able to report to the city and publicly. I want to hit my goals. I'm a goal setter. I think that that's how you move the mark. That's how you grow. And I'm hitting them and exceeding them every year. So if I keep moving them up, I'm kind of like, I'm going to need a staff of 10 to 20 people. But no joke. But I see us doing that well. So we're doing that well without having these big named movies. We're doing really well. The report showed conservatively a $30 million impact since the first day I started working.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For everything you do, yes.
Thank
so that
you.
segues into my next question, if we have time.
We have time.
If we were to have a production studio and want to start our own TV series, essentially because it is number one, what would be the next steps for us in order to do so?
So, okay, let me clarify. A production company or a soundstage studio?
Soundstage studio at this point.
Like Harpo in Chicago, like Oprah's that she had in Chicago, like
Not
that?
so large, so very small, very small.
Okay.
In the working stages, but if it was essentially in its inception,
Okay.
right? And we have a small space with a small studio and the ability to create a TV show, even if we did have to outsource certain components of that, what would be the next steps for us in order to do so and join you
Start an
on
LLC.
this journey, I suppose?
Formalize your business if you haven't
Okay.
already. You need to do your due diligence as any business would. You know, your business plan, what kinds of projects. You need to make sure that I think the issue that many people run into in general, but certainly in our business, is I love doing this and I want to make it a business. All of a sudden you're not doing what you love anymore and you're just running the business. So figuring that out maybe before you go all in, and know that the first 2 years are going to be a little bit scary and a little bit hard. But I tell you what, if you go into the website that we have, filmandkc.com, and you look at the production guide there, that's where all of the professionals are listed. It's free to list yourself as a crew member or a company.
Okay.
But look at the ones in there, and I would actually research what they do, what they specialize in, because they're staying afloat, and what kind of productions are they doing? You probably already have ideas for clients in mind, and certainly content. Creating a show is different than serving a client specifically.
Agreed.
Because you have to figure out with a show, with that content, how you're going to support it and yourselves, financially. So maybe it's a balance of the two. I don't know. But figuring that out in your business plan, I think, would be really smart. And know 100% that it's doable, because you can see other companies in Kansas City have been doing it and doing it for a long time, and there are more and more and more of them. And sometimes they specialize in this or that. Some of them are really small shops of 4 people. Some of them, have 20 people. I would look and see who your competition is, what they're doing, and also kind of glean, little bits, and take little successes of theirs and think about that for yourselves. If you don't want to tell me what kind of show do you? Because there's the interweb, right? There are online shows, there are web series,
Right.
There is broadcast.
I would say it would be more of a web series, but as far as right now, it's an idea.
Okay.
That's in its very beginning inception stage, and so I really it could go in multiple different directions, and
You
so
may
just
be able
from
to
a very
not
beginning
have
standpoint.
the overhead of a
Just don't know.
business
Yeah.
and develop your series,
Yeah.
because there are nowadays what's growing and what's interesting is that there are all these festivals for feature films and short films. What's growing are the inclusion of this new kind of digital media, which means web series.
Right.
There are awards for web series now. A local web series called Redbird was nominated for a daytime Emmy. So that crew went to LA for the daytime Emmy Awards. And who knew that a web series would qualify in that category? So there's new room for shows like that.
Yeah.
I think that maybe check out Redbird and see what their trajectory was, where they showed up so that they got so much exposure. I think that kind of studying that, and that's a local example.
That's perfect
With
advice.
accessible people too, like the creators of that are really, really nice people. They're pros. They have had pieces in Slam Dance every year, which goes on at the same time in Park City as Sundance, but it's a big deal to be a part of that too.
Okay.
Tenacity.
That's perfect.
Tenacity.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
so
If I
much.
can be helpful, let me know.
Of course, it was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. One more round of applause for Ms. Steph Scupham, giving us the inside industry of the film here in Kansas City. On behalf of the Executive Summit team, I'm Chris Caputo. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you soon.